The scream ripped through Aguashi before the sun found its full voice, a sound so raw it made birds shoot from the mango trees like arrows. Pots clanged in the market. A palm wine tapper dropped his gourd and stared, wide-eyed. Men looked at each other as if the earth had coughed up a ghost. Children went still, fingers in mouths, the way small things freeze when they feel a shadow pass. Nana was in the dust, clutching the broken calabash like a dead infant. Her wrapper had come loose at one hip. Her hair was wild, a black crown of thorns. She rocked forward and back, lips shaking, eyes empty. "It is broken," she said, and then again louder, as if volume could stitch the pieces together. "It is broken. The calabash is broken. My life is finished." The women of the pepper stalls drew in breath and crossed their chests. Mothers pulled their daughters behind them, as if fragments could fly. Men formed a half circle and took a careful step back, because a broken sacred thing is an accusation. It points. It judges. It does not miss. This was the calabash of Ofo. In this village, in her family, it was not a bowl, but a covenant. The elders had once said it held the first tears of their founding mother, and those tears had blessed wombs, fields, and fires. No bride crossed the threshold without it. No harvest tasted sweet without a libation poured from it. The calabash had a shine like dusk on still water. People spoke softly in its presence. Even children's laughter went gentle when it was lifted. Now it lay broken, its shell a toothy moon in the dust, and the air around it felt like the mouth of a grave. Obina pushed through the crowd, chest heaving. He was not tall, but his shoulders were the size of a plow's faith. A man who made yam mounds rise like drumbeats, who sang while he cut grass and gave his palm wine to the old before he drank. His eyes had always had light in them when they turned to his wife. Now they were knives. "What is this?" he shouted. "What madness is this, Nena? In our compound? In front of the whole village?" She lifted her head, face streaked. Her hands shook as if carrying live fire. "I rose at dawn, Obina, to pour libation, as I always do. My hands were steady, but it slid away, as if pushed by a breath I could not see. I swear to you, it was not carelessness. I swear." "Spirits pushed your hand?" someone muttered. "Spirits who wait for dawn to play tricks on women? Spirits are bored now," another snorted, showing mirror-stained teeth. The chief priest came, and silence gathered like a net. Dibia Okonkwo's red cap caught the morning, and his walking stick answered the ground in slow, heavy syllables. He was a man who had married medicine to the forests and taken truth as a second wife. He bent, took up a shard, held it up. The sun passed through it like an eye remembering. "This is not accident," he said. His voice was deep and slow, a drum that had seen war. "The ancestors speak through what breaks. Abomination stains this land." Emotion passed through the crowd, fear taking a stroll along spines. Nena's breath punched in short, sharp notes. She crawled closer, dust paining her knees. "Search me, judge me. My hands are clean. I have not defiled my marriage. I have not mocked the shrine. I have not spoken a curse in anger." "She is barren," a woman whispered. "The gods tire of empty prayers." "Sometimes the womb is an altar the gods refuse," someone else whispered. "Not unkindly. Not kindly either." 8 years of childlessness had peeled Obina's pride thin as a leaf in Harmattan. For 8 years he had smiled when boys offered him father's jokes and swallowed dust with men whose compounds clanged with little sandals. He had defended Nena with a patient anger, said the time of a child is the time of rain. No man can force it from the sky. Still, laughter had pursued him like a trickster. And now the calabash lay in pieces at his gate. His mouth went hard. "Perhaps," he said, the word cold, "perhaps you have hidden something from me, Nana." Her body recoiled like he had thrown a stone. "Obina," she breathed, and the name broke in her throat. "No." He could not hold her eyes. He lifted his face as if seeking a taller truth in the sky. The village watched the fissure open, a fine crack running from that morning into everything that had been whole. Dibia's stick struck the ground. "By the next full moon," he said, "the one who caused this must be revealed. If not, the wrath will not find just one door." They left her there, the dust warming under the climbing sun, the shards glinting like a mouthful of broken promises. Night dragged itself into their compound with a limp. The fire burned small. Shadows clung to the raffia mat. Crickets said prayers with their legs. Obina sat across from Nena, his face closed. She stared into the thin flames like they might name a path. "Tell me the truth," he said finally, voice measured but sharp, as if counting each word for weight. "If you have angered the gods, say it. If you have done something shameful, say it." "I will not be a fool before men." She wrapped her arms around herself as if to convince body and spirit to stay together. "I have done no wrong," she said. "I have made no oath in jest. I have not shared our bed outside this marriage. I have not mocked your name or the shrine. I have begged, Obina. I have bathed in leaves until I smelled like a grove. I have swallowed bitter herbs and slept with hope tied around my waist. I have walked to the Iroko in the night and whispered into bark. I have waited. I have waited. If it is not your hands, he said, it is your womb. Silence emptied the room of air. The fire shrank, like it could not bear the scene. Must my emptiness always be my guilt? She asked, barely audible. He did not answer. He rose and stepped outside to breathe the cool. He looked at the moon, a thin coin. He remembered the day he chose her. Laughter like a bell, eyes dark as rainwater. Men had traveled for her. He had arrived with more hope than cows and left with a wife. The calabash, whole and shining, had been lifted above them that day. The elder's words had draped over their heads like light. As long as this remains whole, your love will not break. He had believed. Some women have voices that cut like palm wine. Some speak sugar that makes men fall back and sigh. Adaku's voice was a soft rope. Obina, she said from the shadows near the fence, low, intimate, as if his name belonged close to her lips. She had been his cousin's wife once, and grief had hollowed her, and then filled the hollow with something bright and hard. She had watched Obina defend Nenna, watched his kindness like a cloth she could not wear. Tonight her wrapper was neat, her eyes sharp. She stood with her hands folded as if she had come with respect and left it at the threshold. This night is heavy, she said. I saw what happened. People talk too fast when they are afraid. I came to say, I am sorry for your shame. He stiffened. What shame? The shame of people's mouths, she replied gently. Not your shame. You are a good man. But tongues are long. They lick where they should not. He did not invite her in. He did not send her away either. She is unlucky, Adaku murmured, and bad luck grows hungry when you feed it your life. Be careful what you give it, Obina. She dipped her head. Good night. When she had gone, the night felt colder. Sleep did not come. Nenna laid on the mat and counted breaths until they were a rope she could climb back into morning with. Every sound became an omen. A gecko's click was a warning. An owl's call was a verdict. She saw her mother's face in the flames. Stern, kind, the mixture that had taught her to argue with storms. She remembered her wedding, the drums that rolled like thunder through bodies, the ululations that cinched the sky tighter to earth. She remembered Obina's promise whispered into her ear. If you are the only harvest I bring home, I will still praise the soil. Now she felt that promise like a shirt the river had stolen. At first light, she lifted the shards and washed them clean. The water in the earthen pot shook as if it were afraid of the pieces. She laid them on a mat to dry, arranged them according to the memory of wholeness. She left a space where the calabash's mouth had been, a gap like a missing tooth. She lifted the largest shard and saw her face divided. One cheek cut off by the edge, her eye doubled in the curve. She wanted to smash what remained and also wanted to braid them back into a miracle. She did neither. She gathered the pieces into a basket and tied them with cloth. In the market, silence walked with her. Women stopped pounding fufu and watched. A girl with beads rattling in her hair whispered to her friend and then stared, unblinking. They parted when she approached the stall where Kioma sold smoked fish and laughter. Kioma had been Nanana's friend since they could both run without falling. She opened her arms and Nanana fell into them like a starving child into a harvest. Don't listen, Kioma said into her ear. Let their words pass you like wind. You did not break anything in your soul. They will say I did, Nana whispered. They will say I broke my husband standing among men. Men standing is tall grass, Kioma said, her mouth tightening. One goat passes, the blades bow. What matters is the soil. From farther down, a woman's voice carried like sharp smoke. If a woman cannot hold a child, she said loudly, she cannot hold a calabash. Hands are honest. Another voice laughed. Maybe a secret lover knocked it from her grip with his shadow. Laughter. Nena closed her eyes. She let it pass through her like a wave through reeds. But words leave scratches even when they flow. On the way home, she walked slowly, eyes on the red dust, the sun burning her shoulders. At the edge of the path, an old man stood. He was known as Ozuo, who remembered 3 chief priests and had outlived 2 wives. He had skin like bark and eyes that missed nothing. Daughter, he said, calling her what age allowed him. When a thing breaks, people look for a guilty hand, but sometimes the thing breaks because it is time to reveal what is already broken. She stopped. What do you mean? He lifted his chin toward the compound. A house that stands without children has other pillars. If one is cracked, the roof still sits. But Harmattan will come. Harmattan will always come. Are you saying my husband is cracked? She asked. She did not know why her voice held anger. I am saying Harmattan will always come, he replied, and shuffled away, smile dried by the sun. At the stream, a girl stumbled and dropped her water pot. It burst on a stone with a sound like a faint echo of the morning's breaking. The girl screamed, then laughed, then cursed their clumsiness. The air held its breath. Nena knelt at the bank and washed her hands slowly, as if she could lift a curse with water. The stream looked back with small, bright eyes and said nothing. At dusk, Dibia Okonkwo sent a boy to call them to the square. The whole village came, because fear is gossip's elder brother. The old kola tree spread its arms above the people. The priest stood before the shrine, white chalk marking his eyes and wrists. The pot of libation steamed the air with a smell like memory. He lifted his stick. When a sacred vessel breaks, he intoned, it can mean many things. It can mean a vow has been broken. It can mean blood cries out. It can mean someone has mocked the gods in secret. The ancestors require truth. If truth is brought, they will show mercy. What if truth is hidden? Someone shouted. Then the wrath will hunt, he said, and the word hunt dropped like a stone into a silent lake. He named the rituals: a cleansing at the grove on the third market day, a night vigil with 7 lamps and 7 elders, a vow that would cut if false. He looked at Nena and then at Obina. This is a marriage matter, he said. Both of you kneel. They knelt. The ground was still warm. The priest drew a line of chalk on Obina's brow and on Nena's. He prayed in an old tongue. He raised the shard he had kept and pressed it gently to Nena's palm. It bit a crescent into her skin, a red smile. Whoever broke this blessing, he said, will be known. On the way home, Obina walked ahead, his steps too fast for thought. Nena followed like a shadow that had forgotten its body. They entered the compound without speaking. A goat bleated from the neighbor's yard, then fell quiet as if remembering it had been told to hush. Later, under the thin light of a lamp, Obina took a gourd of palm wine and poured some on the ground. He watched it sink into the packed earth. I have been a faithful man, he said, not looking at her. I have worked. I have not taken another wife. I have kept my hands from shame. Why does the world make me small? Do you think I have not kept my vows? She asked softly. If my womb has been closed, is that a broken oath? Did I vow children the day we married? Or did we vow love? He turned to her then, face raw. Children are the way love gets a face, he said. Do not teach me what I have longed for in silence. They stood there, close enough to touch but holding back as if the air between them were a thin, fragile thing. He went to the doorway and stood in it, dark against dark, a man who could lift boulders but not the weight in his chest. When he did not see her crying, he thought her heart hard. When she did not see him crying, she thought his heart gone. The next day, the gossip learned to fly. By noon, it had landed in every ear wearing a different mask. Some said Nena had been seen walking to the grove at midnight with a pot on her head, and that the pot had never returned. Some said a stranger had visited her mother thrice in a week, and that strangers only come with gifts or grief. Some said Obina had angered a spirit by refusing a second wife offered by his family, and that the spirit had pinched the calabash out of his house in spite. Adaku listened by her doorway, head bent as if she were shelling cowpeas. She fed new words into the wind, each one shaped like care but heavy like stones. He is a good man, she told the women, voice sweet, and good men suffer when their women carry salt instead of sweetness. She did not accuse, she suggested. She did not point. She opened hands full of possibilities. In the evenings, she passed by Obina's compound with a gourd of stew or a modest bundle of greens. You must eat, she said softly. A man cannot carry shame on an empty stomach. She did not enter without invitation. She left the food and the scent of pepper in the air. Kioma came to Nena's fire and sat with her, both of them quiet. Do not walk alone, Kioma said finally. A woman who has been named by gossip should walk with a witness. I am tired of witnesses, Nena said. They watch, but do not help. I am not a witness, Kioma said. I am a wall. She took Nena's hands and turned them palms up. The crescent mark from the shard had scabbed into a small moon. Your hands are clean, she said, but sometimes clean hands still bleed. On the third market day, the grove smelled like rain even though the sky was clear. 7 elders came, white cloths over their shoulders. They lit 7 lamps and stood them in a circle around the old kola trunk at the heart of the place. Dibia Okonkwo took the basket of shards from Nena and set it before the trunk, then began to chant. The chant did not call to gods like a child crying to its mother. It opened a door for something older to step in. The air grew thick. The leaves stopped moving. Even insects drew back like decorum had entered the room. The priest poured palm wine on the earth. He cut the throat of a white cockerel and let the blood touch 3 shards. He lifted one and held it to Nena's chest, then to Obina's. If there's a lie, he said, let it burn in the liar's bones. The circle waited. Nothing burned. But later, when Nana rose, her knees felt like stone had been speaking into them. The priest looked troubled, but did not say so. As they left the grove, a wind started from nowhere and ran through the trees, laughing. The lamps guttered out. A leaf fell and landed on the largest shard, as if the forest had signed its name on the matter. That night, lightning gathered at the horizon and did not come closer. It crackled far away like gossip trying to be thunder. In the compound, Obina sat alone for a long time and then lifted the latch to leave. He felt pulled, though he told himself it was just air moving in his chest. His feet carried him along the path that skirted the farms, past the young plantain where goats had been cheating, past Ozuo's hut where an old song lay asleep. He reached Adaku's fence and found her outside, untying bundles of dried okra. She looked up. Surprise crossed her face and then vanished like a lizard. She made a small bow and a smaller smile. You walk late, she said. Sleep will not come, he replied. It does not come to men whose names are in too many mouths, she said softly. Come, sit a moment. The night is big, but a small fire makes it kind. He hesitated, then sat on the bench just inside the fence. The darkness wrapped them like a wrapper, careful, intimate. She did not ask him questions. She warmed a small bowl of soup and set it before him, a little pile of EBA beside it. He ate as if he had forgotten food could be gentle. When he finished, he wiped his mouth and stared at his hands. You have carried a lot, she said. Let your shoulders rest. Rest does not judge. This is not my house, he said. No, she replied. It is a place for breathing. She looked at him the way one looks at a scar, with pity and fascination. She tucked a loose coil of hair behind her ear, a small movement that said more than most speeches. She did not touch him. She let silence do what words would spoil. When he left, the moon had climbed. It looked down with its old, patient face. In bed, Nena reached for Obina and found only the cool dent of his body. She closed her eyes. She thought of the calabash not as a vessel, but as a story. Water, hand, mouth, harvest, song, blessing. All the times it had been lifted high and the way it had shone. She thought of the space where its mouth used to be, the gap like a tooth missing from a smile. She felt the gap in her life widen, a dark river widening its banks after rain. Before dawn, a dog began to howl, a long, low sound that rose and fell like the wind hosting a funeral. People say dogs see the edges of things before we do. In her sleep, Nena's hand curled as if to grasp something falling. Morning brought 3 signs. First, a flock of weaver birds, usually loud as a market, sat silent on the silk cotton tree. They watched the compound as if they were elders in feathers. Second, a clay pot at the corner of the compound, used to catch rainwater, split along a narrow line as neat as a parting in hair. No one had touched it. Third, the goat that had been tethered near the fence chewed through its rope in the night and wandered to the shrine. It lay there, alive, eyes wide, refusing to rise, as if it had seen a thing that made standing an act of disrespect. People came to look, because people always come. Dibia Okonkwo arrived, eyes narrowed. He touched the pot's crack with 2 fingers, then the goat's forehead. He looked at Nena a long time, and then at Obina, and then at the earth. The land speaks, he said, but it speaks in parables. We must listen with patience. Obina flinched. My patience is thin. Then your ears are thinner, the priest said, without malice. That evening, Kioma brought a calabash of soup and found Nena in the yard with the shards spread on a mat again. The setting sun laid a thin gold edge on every piece. What are you doing? Kioma asked, half smiling, half afraid. Remembering, Nena said. If I can see the whole, even in pieces, maybe I will not lose myself. You are not a vessel, Kioma said. You do not shatter like this. Don't I? Nena asked, and a single tear made its path clean down dusty skin. She wiped it, then laughed once without joy. Look at me. I talk like an elder. Next I will start saying the ground is wise and the sky is a book. Kioma knelt. Say what you like. I am here to hear it. They sat until the light went thin. A bat traced prayers in the air above them. Somewhere, a child laughed too loud and a mother shushed him like joy could attract misfortune. Inside, Obina lay on his back staring at the rafters. The smell of Adaku's soup still clung to him, and shame lay beside relief in his chest, 2 goats sharing a rope. He turned and saw Nena through the doorway, her profile black against red light, her hands moving among the fragments like a priestess of small ruins. He felt something tug, A shard of love, perhaps. A memory of her laughing with her head thrown back. The day he slipped on wet clay, and she called him my dancer. The tug hurt, like a good tooth aching. When the moon rose that night, a breeze moved through the compound, gentle as a mother's palm. It lifted a corner of the cloth covering the basket of shards, then straightened it, respectful. Nana slept and dreamed of a calabash whole again, but in the dream it was not smooth. The lines of repair gleamed like rivers in the sun. In the dream, she poured water, and the water did not leak. She woke with her heart beating fast, sitting up with a small, wild hope. She reached for Obinna. He was there, this time. His back was to her, his breath slow, his shoulders not so hard. She put her palm near his spine and did not touch him, then withdrew her hand as if she had almost reached into fire. In the dark, far from their house, Adaku lay awake, eyes open, hands folded over her chest. She had too much mind for sleep. She saw paths, one paved with pity, one with patience, one with a joy she did not believe she owed anyone. She had learned long ago that waiting is not the same as losing. She smiled into the dark, and it did not smile back. Morning again. The village woke like a drum learning its rhythm. The sky stretched and yawned. Children ran, feet throwing up dust like blessings. A woman sang at her well. An old man coughed and spit and then laughed at himself. Life, stubborn as cassava, pushed through the stone of fear. But the space around Obinna's compound had a weight. People felt it when they passed. They walked a little faster. They spoke more quietly. Everyone knows a house under a question is a house where sound arrives late. A boy came with a message. The priest called for another vigil that night. The ancestors are impatient, the boy recited, having been told the words. They want song. That evening, the village gathered with lamps and low voices. The elders' faces looked carved from wood. The priest set the basket of shards in the center again and began a chant that rose, and fell, until the night itself seemed to breathe with them. He asked questions into the dark, not to people, but to the space where answers live before they are born. Where is the fault? He asked. The lamps flickered. A moth died in a flame, like a word swallowed too soon. Who tilled the field of this misfortune? He asked. A wind lifted the hem of his robe, and then died, as if it had only come to sniff and remember. What vow cracked? He asked. In the pause that followed, there was a sound from the far edge of the square. Small, but sharp. A gourd struck stone. Heads turned. A figure stepped into the lamplight, carrying a bundle wrapped in cloth. The cloth was stained, the way secrets stain. The figure's face was covered with a scarf. The murmurs stopped. The night leaned forward. The figure lifted the bundle with both hands, arms trembling from weight or fear, and laid it gently beside the basket of shards. I have come, a voice said, muffled by the scarf, to pour truth where lies have gathered. And the lamps hissed, and the air changed, and a new kind of silence, bright and thin as a blade, moved over the square. The square was still. Even the crickets swallowed their songs. All eyes followed the figure who'd stepped out of the shadows, cloth wrapped around their face, bundle clutched to their chest as if it carried fire. The flames of the 7 lamps hissed, bent low, then rose again, stretching like curious necks. The bundle was set down carefully beside the basket of broken shards. The stranger's voice, muffled but steady, broke the silence. I have come to pour truth where lies have gathered. Gasps rolled through the crowd like the first rumble of thunder before rain. Mothers gripped their children tighter. Men leaned forward, suspicion sharpening in their eyes. The elders exchanged glances but said nothing. Only Dibia Okonkwo lifted his hand, commanding stillness. Unveil yourself, he said, his tone heavy with authority. The figure's hands trembled as they reached up. The scarf fell away, and faces in the crowd twisted with shock. It was Adaku. Obinna's chest tightened, shame and confusion clashing in his veins. Nena, kneeling by the basket of shards, lifted her head slowly. Her eyes, swollen from days of tears, locked on Adaku's face with a mixture of disbelief and dawning dread. Adaku's gaze did not falter. She untied the bundle, revealing a smaller calabash, cracked along one side, stained with dried palm wine. The crowd murmured in confusion. What is this? Dibia Okonkwo asked, his voice sharp. Adaku lifted it high. This calabash belongs to me, she said, her tone carrying both defiance and sorrow. It was in my husband's house before death took him. On the night the sacred calabash of Ofo broke, I felt a stirring in my own hut. I awoke to find mine cracked, as if struck by unseen hands. That night I heard whispers, voices not of this world. They said, the curse will not rest in one house, it will flow to another. The crowd gasped again. Whispers cut through the night. 2 calabashes? Broken? Spirits moving between homes? But Nena shook her head, voice weak but resolute. Why do you bring this now, Adaku? Why do you stand here to accuse me when your calabash cracked in silence? You have waited until my name is already buried in shame before you spoke. Why? Adaku's eyes glimmered, though whether from tears or cunning no one could tell. Because it is not just your curse, Nena. It is ours. The ancestors are speaking to all of us. Perhaps we all share guilt, though you alone are blamed. The people stirred uneasily. The elders shifted on their stools, muttering to one another. Dibia Okonkwo raised his staff. Enough. This is no place for tongues to tangle in darkness. Truth must be tested. Tomorrow, when the sun reaches its height, both women will come to the shrine. There, the spirits will decide. The crowd dispersed reluctantly, carrying new fuel for their gossip. The night air was thick with unease. Nena remained on her knees, staring at the broken shards before her as if they held answers locked within. Obinna turned, his face shadowed. For a moment he seemed to reach toward his wife, but then his hand fell limp at his side. Without a word he walked away, leaving her under the weight of 1,000 unseen eyes. At dawn, Nena sat by the river, her reflection broken by ripples. Kioma came and knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. Do not let this drown you, Kioma said softly. Nena's lips trembled. How do I rise, Kioma, when even my husband doubts me, when the whole village looks at me and sees only emptiness? Kioma tightened her grip. The river does not stop flowing because people throw stones into it. You are not empty, Nena. You are a river. You carry more than you know. But Nena's heart was heavy. The words slid into her ears but found no soil to take root. She could not shake the image of Adaku standing tall in the square. Her cracked calabash held high, her voice steady. The same Adaku who had for months been hovering like a shadow at the edge of her marriage. The doubt gnawed at her. Was this truly the voice of the ancestors, or was it a trap woven by human hands? By midday, the entire village had gathered at the shrine. The Iroko tree loomed above, its ancient roots twisted like clenched fists. The air smelled of chalk and sacrificial blood. Dibia Okonkwo stood between Nena and Adaku, his staff raised. The ancestors will not be mocked. Today, the truth will be revealed. Both women will swear before the spirits, holding shards of the sacred calabash. If lies are spoken, the curse will consume the liar. The crowd pressed closer, the air buzzing with tension. Adaku stepped forward first, her movements deliberate, her face serene. She took a shard into her hand and lifted it high. I swear by the spirits of this land, she declared, that I have spoken truth. I did not break the sacred calabash of Ofo. If I lie, let my body bear the wrath of the ancestors. She lowered the shard, unshaken. Nothing happened. No wind, no thunder, no trembling of the earth. The crowd murmured approval. Then it was Nena's turn. Her hands trembled as she lifted a shard, the same shard that had cut her palm days before. She pressed it to her chest. I swear before the spirits, she said, her voice breaking. I did not break the calabash. My hands are innocent. If I lie, let the wrath of the ancestors strike me. The air grew still. The trees hushed. For a moment, even breath seemed to stop. Then a gust of wind tore through the shrine, scattering dust and leaves, extinguishing one of the 7 lamps. Gasps filled the air. Nena's body shook as the shard in her hand grew hot, burning her palm. She cried out and dropped it to the ground. The crowd roared. The curse! The curse has chosen her! Obinna staggered back, his face pale, torn between horror and disbelief. Adaku's lips curved into the faintest smile, quickly hidden as she bowed her head solemnly. Nena collapsed to the earth, her cries piercing the air. No, I am innocent. Ancestors, why have you forsaken me? But the people had seen enough. They turned from her with pity and fear, whispering, shaking their heads. In their eyes, judgment had been passed. Dibia Okonkwo lowered his staff, his face troubled. The spirits have spoken. Until the truth is clearer than this, Nena must live apart from the village. The land cannot bear her presence. Her wail echoed against the trees as 2 young men stepped forward to lead her away. Obinna stood frozen, his fists clenched, his jaw tight. His wife's cries tore at him, but the eyes of the whole village were on him. To defend her now was to defy the spirits. To abandon her was to betray his vows. Caught between shame and love, Obinna did nothing. He let her be taken. And in the shadows, Adaku lowered her gaze, hiding the fire of triumph flickering in her eyes. That night, Nena sat alone at the edge of the forest, the basket of shards beside her. The wind whispered through the trees like mocking laughter. Her heart was heavy, her spirit cracked like the calabash itself. But deep within the forest, a light flickered, a faint glow, golden and strange. Drawn by something she could not name, Nenna rose, her body weak, but her spirit desperate. She followed the glow deeper into the trees, and there, in a clearing, she saw an old woman seated on a stone, her hair white as ash, her eyes glowing like embers. "Daughter of Ogwashi," the woman said in a voice that carried both gentleness and thunder, "do not weep. What is broken can be mended, but only if you are willing to walk the path of fire." Nenna fell to her knees. "Who are you? Why have the ancestors turned against me?" The woman smiled faintly. "The ancestors do not turn against the innocent. It is men who twist their voices for their own desires. The calabash was not broken by chance, nor by your hand. If you wish to prove your innocence, you must uncover the hand that hides in shadow. Are you ready to walk where fear lives?" Nenna's heart pounded. Fear gripped her, but so did a spark of defiance. Slowly, she lifted her head, her tears catching the faint glow. "Yes," she whispered. "I will walk that path." The woman nodded, her eyes burning brighter. "Then rise, for your story has only just begun." The forest swallowed Nenna, and with each step her heart beat harder, like a drum summoning courage from bones that wanted to break. The old woman with hair like ash walked before her feet bare, her back straight, her voice carrying without effort. "Do not look back," she said. "The village has cast you out. But exile is not always a curse. Sometimes it is the beginning of power." Nenna's wrapper brushed against thorns. Her feet sank into soft earth, yet she followed without hesitation. She had nothing left but the shards in her basket and the voice of the woman who walked ahead, as if the trees themselves obeyed her. "Who are you?" Nenna asked, her voice breaking the silence of crickets and owls. The woman stopped. She turned, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "Names are burdens," she said. "But once, they called me Ijele, the one who stands apart. I was priestess when your mother was still a child. I warned the people that envy would be their ruin, but they did not listen. So I left, and the forest took me. The ancestors did not abandon me. They taught me what the living refused to hear." Nenna stared, trembling. "Why have you come to me now?" "Because your innocence burns like a lamp under a basket," Ijele said, pointing at her with a finger that seemed to glow. "It is hidden by shadows, but it has not gone out. And because there is rot in your village, a rot that wears a woman's face." Adaku's face rose in Nenna's mind, sharp as a blade, her jaw clenched. "You feel it," Ijele said, her voice almost tender. "But feeling is not proof. If you are to return whole, you must show them truth so clear that even the blind cannot deny it. That is your path of fire." Nenna fell to her knees, pressing her face into the dirt. "I am weary, mother. My husband has turned from me. My people spit my name like poison. I have no child, no place, no voice. How can I fight against all of them?" The old woman crouched beside her, lifting her chin gently. Her touch was warm, firm, steady. "A calabash may crack, but water does not lose its thirst. Daughter, do you not see? The breaking was not your ending. It was your beginning. The shards you carry are not curses. They are weapons. What is broken can cut. What is mended can shine stronger than before." Her words struck Nenna's chest like thunder cracking open the sky. For the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of something she had thought gone forever. Hope. "Rise," Ijele commanded. Nenna rose. In the village, Obina sat by the fire, silent, staring into the flames until his eyes stung. He heard the whispers from beyond his compound, carried by women who fetched water and men who sharpened hoes. "His wife is cursed," they said. "He should take another. Adaku is strong, fertile. She would give him sons." Each word was a knife. And yet, in the silence of his hut, he felt her absence like a missing limb. He remembered her laughter, her soft songs while grinding pepper, the way she touched his shoulder after long days. He remembered the promises they had whispered on their wedding night, words carried only by the darkness. But then he remembered the broken calabash, the flame that had licked her hand at the shrine, the silence of the ancestors. His faith trembled. That night, Adaku came to his compound with a bowl of steaming yam porridge. She moved like a shadow, her wrapper tied neatly, her hair oiled, her face soft with feigned pity. "You should eat," she said gently. "Strength leaves a man when sorrow feeds on him." Obina did not answer. He looked at her, his jaw tight, his eyes conflicted. She placed the bowl before him, then knelt, lowering her gaze like a servant. "I know the pain you carry," she whispered. "A home without laughter, a bed without children. I know. I too have known emptiness, but emptiness can be filled, Obina. If only you will allow it." Her words lingered in the air, heavy, dangerous. He rose suddenly, turning from her. Go, Adaku, leave me. She lifted her head, her eyes glinting in the firelight. For now, she whispered. And she left, but her steps were light, almost triumphant. Deep in the forest, Nena sat beside Ijela's fire. The old woman mixed herbs, crushing them with a stone, humming a song that curled through the trees like smoke. You will drink this, Ijela said, handing her a calabash of bitter liquid. It will cleanse your spirit. Then, you will dream. In your dream, you will see what your waking eyes cannot. Nena drank. The bitterness clawed down her throat, but she did not stop. She lay back on the mat, her eyes closing. Darkness fell. Then images came. She saw the calabash shatter, but it was not her hands that dropped it. She saw a shadow slip into her hut at dawn. Unseen. Unheard. A hand reaching for the vessel, tilting it, letting it fall. She saw the face of Adaku flicker in the shadow, her smile curved like a knife. Nena awoke with a gasp, sweat soaking her wrapper. Ijela's eyes were waiting. You saw, the old woman said. Nena nodded, trembling with fury and grief. It was her, Adaku. She broke it. But the people will not believe your dream, Ijela warned. Dreams are like smoke. Beautiful, but hard to grasp. You must find proof. Something the eyes of the living cannot deny. How? Nena asked desperately. Ijela leaned closer, her voice low, steady. The ancestors do not lie. The truth is in the shards you carry. They will lead you to her hand. But you must be patient. You must be strong. And when the time comes, you must not fear the fire. Nena's fingers tightened around the basket beside her. For the first time since the calabash broke, her tears did not fall from weakness. They burned with purpose. I will not fear, she whispered. Back in Ogwashi, the drums began to beat. Not for a festival, but for a meeting. The elders had called the men of the village. Obina stood among them, his head bowed, his body heavy with shame. The eldest elder raised his voice. Obina, you are a man. You are strong, hard-working, but you cannot walk with an empty hand forever. A wife who brings curses cannot be your shelter. It is time. You must take another. The crowd murmured. Adaku stood at the edge, her wrapper neat, her eyes lowered in feigned modesty. Obina's fists clenched. His voice cracked as he spoke. She is my wife. I made a vow. I will not cast her away. The elders muttered, displeased. Then you will remain a man with no children, no future. Your stubbornness will be your ruin. Obina stood his ground, but doubt gnawed at him, heavier than stone. Far away, in the forest, Nena knelt before Ijele. The old woman pressed her hand to her forehead. Your path is set, she said. You will return, not as a woman begging for mercy, but as a woman carrying fire. The ancestors will guide you. The truth will find its voice through you. Nena rose, her body trembling but her spirit alive. She gathered the shards, wrapping them in cloth, pressing them to her chest. She looked up at the night sky, the stars bright and sharp. I will return, she whispered, and I will not return alone. I will return with truth. And in the distance, beyond the trees, the village drums continued to beat, calling for decisions that would shape her fate. But Nena was no longer afraid. The broken calabash was no longer her shame. It was her weapon. Her journey of fire had begun. The air in Ogwashi grew restless. Drums that should have called men to the wrestling grounds now throbbed with unease. The elders pressed Obina harder each day, voices sharp with tradition and pride. You must take another wife, they told him, or your lineage will vanish like smoke. Their eyes turned often to Adaku, whose modest glances and soft smiles fed whispers that circled faster than flies around palm wine. Obina walked with his head low, his shadow heavy. Each step through the village carried shame, not because of the wife he had lost, but because he had failed to defend her. And still, in the quiet of night, her absence ached beside him. He heard her laughter in the creak of rafters, her prayers in the crackle of firewood. Yet each dawn, when he rose, it was Adaku's shadow he found waiting at his gate, bearing bowls of soup, bundles of greens, or gentle words that slipped under his skin like hooks. Meanwhile, Nena walked the forest paths under Ijele's guidance. Days turned into weeks, and her spirit sharpened like a blade whetted against stone. Ijele taught her chants that curled through the air like smoke, herbs that revealed hidden things, and the language of silence, the way the wind bent leaves, the way a fire flared when lies were near. The old woman made her hold the shards each night, tracing the cracks with her fingers. These pieces know the truth, Ijele told her. The hand that broke them still carries the stain. When the time is ripe, the shards will call out. Nena slept by the fire, her dreams vivid and burning. She saw Adaku often, smiling, whispering, weaving her lies like cloth. But she also saw Obina, torn and lost, his heart a tether pulling him in two directions. One dawn, she woke with a cry, her chest heaving. In her dream, the shards had glowed red hot, and she had seen Adaku's hand reach toward them. When she opened her eyes, the basket beside her was trembling, the shards clinking softly like bells in the wind. "It is time," Ijele said. The next market day, Ogwashi was alive with color and noise. Traders from distant villages spread cloth, beads, and spices. Children ran between stalls, laughter sharp as flutes. But under it all, tension pulsed. Word had spread that the elders would again summon Obina to decide his future. Adaku prepared herself carefully. She oiled her skin until it shone, wrapped her finest cloth about her waist, adorned her wrists with bangles that sang when she moved. She did not rush. She knew the power of slow steps, the patience of snakes. In her heart, victory already tasted sweet. As the sun reached its height, the square filled. The elders sat in a circle, their walking sticks planted like rooted trees. Obina stood before them, his shoulders broad, but his face worn. Adaku lingered at the edge, her eyes downcast, her body swaying like a palm tree waiting to be claimed. One elder rose. His voice was strong, carrying across the square. "Obina, son of Chike, today you must choose. The ancestors have spoken through the broken calabash. Your wife has been cast out. Will you continue to dwell in shame? Or will you take another to bear your name forward?" The crowd hummed with expectation. All eyes turned to Obina. His lips parted, but before he could speak, a voice cut through the square like thunder. "I am still his wife." Gasps erupted. Heads snapped toward the sound. Nena stepped into the square, the basket of shards clutched to her chest. Her wrapper was plain, her hair unadorned, but her presence burned brighter than any ornament. Her eyes, once swollen with tears, now blazed with defiance. The crowd parted as she walked, whispers swirling like dust. Some spat in disgust, others muttered prayers, but none could look away. She stopped beside Obina, who stared at her with eyes wide. His heart caught between shame and longing. The elders frowned. "You were cast out," one said sternly. "Why do you return against the will of the ancestors?" Nena dropped the basket at their feet. The shards spilled out, glinting under the sun. "Because the ancestors have not cursed me," she said, her voice strong. "Men have cursed me. Lies have cursed me. And today, the truth will break those lies." Gasps rippled. Adaku stiffened, her bangles clinking as her hands trembled slightly. Nena lifted a shard, holding it high. "This calabash was not broken by my hand. It was broken by envy. And envy walks among you wearing a mask of pity." The crowd murmured louder, eyes darting toward Adaku. Adaku forced a laugh, soft, dismissive. Her exile has made her mad. Who will believe the words of a barren woman? But Nena's gaze did not waver. She pressed the shard to her palm, the same shard that had once burned her skin. "If I lie, let the ancestors strike me now." The square grew silent. The shard remained cool in her hand. No wind, no fire, no curse, only stillness. Then she turned to Adaku. Slowly, deliberately, she extended another shard. "Now, let her hold it." The crowd roared with approval. "Yes, let her hold it. Let the ancestors judge her too." Adaku's face paled, but she forced a smile. "I have nothing to fear." She stepped forward, took the shard into her hand. At first, nothing happened. Relief flickered in her eyes. She opened her mouth to speak, but then the shard began to tremble. Heat spread across her palm, rising into fire. Adaku gasped, dropping it with a cry. Her skin blistered, red welts forming where it had touched. The square erupted. Shouts filled the air. "The curse! She is the one! She broke it!" Adaku fell to her knees, clutching her hand, her eyes wild. "No, no, it was not me. The spirits deceive you. I only wanted to—" Her voice broke, drowned by the crowd's fury. Obina staggered back, his face twisted with shock and guilt. He looked at Nena, then at Adaku, then back again, his heart tearing in two. Dibia Okonkwo raised his staff, his voice booming. "The truth has spoken. Adaku, envy has consumed you. You sought to destroy your sister and take her place. But the ancestors cannot be mocked. You have cursed yourself." Adaku screamed, her voice a raw wound. She tried to flee, but the elders' guards seized her, dragging her away. The people spat, their eyes blazing with rage. Nena stood tall, the shards at her feet glimmering like weapons. Her chest heaved, but her gaze was steady. Obina fell to his knees before her, tears streaming down his face. "Forgive me, Nena," he whispered. "Forgive me for doubting you, for leaving you alone in shame. You are my wife. You are my strength." She looked down at him, her heart torn. The love that once bound them still flickered, but the wounds ran deep. Slowly, she lifted him to his feet. I do not need your pity, Obinna, she said, her voice calm, steady. I need your truth. If you are ready to walk beside me, not as a man blinded by pride, but as a man who knows the worth of his wife, then I will forgive. But if not, I will walk alone. For I have seen now. I am not broken. The crowd fell silent, awed by her words. Even the elders bowed their heads, respect in their eyes. And as the sun dipped low, painting the square in gold, the shards at Nenena's feet caught the light. They no longer looked like fragments of ruin. They looked like pieces of a crown. Her journey was not yet over, but her fire had been lit. The evening sky over Ogwashi glowed blood red, as though the heavens themselves had witnessed the village's shame. The dust of the day still hung in the square, the echo of shouts lingering like ghosts. Adaku's wails had faded into the distance as the guards dragged her toward exile. Yet her cries clung to every ear, shrill with denial, sour with envy exposed. But all eyes were no longer on Adaku. They were on Nena. She stood at the center of the square, shards of the broken calabash scattered around her like fragments of a fallen star. Her wrapper was plain, her hands trembling slightly from the weight of all she had endured. But her eyes blazed with the strength of one who had walked through fire and returned whole. Obinna knelt at her feet still, his tears cutting lines down his dusty cheeks. Forgive me, Nena, he begged, his voice hoarse. Forgive me for doubting you, for letting pride blind me. I am a fool who let the words of men become heavier than the love of my wife. The crowd murmured. Some nodded with pity, others spat into the ground, disgusted by his weakness. Pride was no small thing for a man to drop in public. Nena looked at him, her jaw tight, her chest rising and falling like a drumbeat. The woman who had once wept in silence was gone. In her place stood one who had tasted exile and found her voice in the wilderness. Obinna, she said slowly, each word measured. When the calabash broke, you let me bear the curse alone. When the tongues of the village cut me, you stood silent. When I was dragged into the forest, you let me go. Obinna flinched as though struck. She stepped closer, her voice rising. You vowed to love me through all seasons, yet when the storm came, you abandoned me. Do you think words of apology can mend what pride shattered? Do you think tears can erase the nights I lay alone, praying to gods who seemed deaf because my own husband's ears were closed? The crowd stirred, uneasy, their eyes darting between husband and wife. Never before had a woman spoken with such fire in the square, not even before the elders. Obinna bowed his head. You are right. I failed you. But I beg for one chance, to prove that I can still be the man you married. Let me carry the shame I placed on you. Let me show the village that you are not only innocent, but the true strength of this house. Nena studied him, her eyes softening slightly. Her heart remembered. The boy who had sung in the fields, the man who had held her hand through years of barrenness, the laughter they once shared. But her heart also remembered the silence, the abandonment, the sting of his doubt. She turned from him and faced the elders. The calabash broke, but I did not. I walked into exile and the ancestors showed me truth. Today, I stand not as a woman begging for her place, but as one who knows her worth. Let this village learn. A wife is not a vessel to be cast aside when empty, nor a shadow to be blamed when darkness falls. She is a pillar. Break her, and the whole house will crumble. Her words struck like lightning. Women gasped, their eyes glistening with tears as though centuries of silence had just found its voice. Men shifted uncomfortably, their pride pricked. Even the elders sat still, unable to rebuke her. One elder rose slowly, leaning on his staff. His voice was heavy with age and wisdom. Today, we have seen envy unmasked, lies exposed. We have seen a woman walk through fire and return with truth. Nena, the ancestors have vindicated you. You are no longer a woman under curse. You are a woman under blessing. And the village will honor you as such. Cheers rose, swelling like a river breaking its banks. The women ululated, the children clapped, the men shouted approval. For the first time in years, Nena felt the weight lift from her shoulders. Obinna rose to his feet, standing beside her. He turned to the people, his voice loud and steady. This is my wife. She is my crown, my blessing, my strength. I will not take another. Let the world mock me if it will. I will walk with her, for she is the proof that truth cannot be buried. The crowd roared louder, but Nena raised her hand, silencing them. Words are wind, Obinna. If you are truly changed, prove it not with promises, but with deeds. Stand beside me when the gossip rises again. Defend me not because I am your wife, but because I am your equal. That is the man I will forgive. Obinna bowed his head. then that is the man I will be. Days passed, and the village slowly shifted. Where once women whispered insults behind her back, now they came to Nena seeking counsel. Where once children pointed, now they ran to her with laughter. Even the elders, in their pride, began to look upon her with respect. Adaku was banished, her name spoken only in cautionary tales. Beware envy, mothers told their daughters. It eats the heart faster than fire. And though Nenena's womb remained silent, her name became a song of strength. Women whispered her story at the stream, in the market, by the fire. How the barren wife became the voice of truth. How the broken calabash revealed the rod of envy. How the ancestors lifted her shame and crowned her with fire. One evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, Obinna sat beside her in their compound. He held her hand, his thumb brushing the scar on her palm where the shard had once burned. I thought our love had ended with the calabash, he said softly. But I see now. It began with it. It had to break for us to see what we carried. Nena looked at him, her eyes gentle. Love is not in what stays unbroken, Obinna. Love is in what we mend together. She leaned her head on his shoulder, and for the first time in many years, peace settled in her chest. Above them, the moon rose full and bright, casting silver over the shards she had placed carefully in the corner of the compound. No longer symbols of shame, they gleamed like stars caught in clay, a reminder that what breaks can be remade, and what is remade shines even stronger. And so the tale of Nena spread beyond Oguashi, carried by traders and wanderers, sung by griots and whispered by mothers. It became a story of warning and of hope, that envy destroys, but truth redeems, that silence kills, but voice saves, that even the most broken vessel can become a crown. For in the land of men and gods, in the court of ancestors, nothing stays hidden forever.